Professor Kondlo, political analyst, to further unpack the developments and the results from the ANC's elective conference. Prof, a very good afternoon to you. I just want to hear your reaction when those results were actually announced yesterday. What was your feeling?
Well, I was not surprised with Cyril's victory, because really if branch nominations were to be analyzed carefully, and if there were anything to go by, really all indications were there that Cyril was going to win. Of course, I had my reservations, because sometimes a Trump-like issue could actually occur during elections. And we are surprised. We see someone we thought is not going to win, winning. So I was not surprised with Cyril's victory. I was a bit surprised with the victory of Ace Magashule in the Free State as Secretary General of the ANC. Remember, Alicia, the position of Secretary General is actually, it holds the engine, the machinery of the entire organization.
Absolutely.
And if you get a person who is not really clean and implicated in a number of things, like Ace Magashule, now running the engine of the ANC.
But the branches have spoken, Prof, like you've just said.
Then the point I was coming to is that then it means you could have the leadership of Cyril Ramaphosa stifled in a number of ways.
I want to get to that.
Because of disagreements.
I really want to get to that.
And the Secretary General.
I want to really get into that. Let's look at his deputy before we look at his Secretary General. Did you expect, I mean, we spoke, we speculated, we said, yeah, no unity candidate whatsoever. And there goes Didi Mabuza, is now the Deputy President.
Yes, Alicia, he had the numbers. Mabuza had the numbers, and he actually played his cards very close to the chest. But I really expected that the ANC delegates, out of consideration of issues of gender in the ANC, not only gender, but seniority and experience. I actually thought they were going to consider Lindiwe Sisulu as a deputy president, because she is very capable. Well, but unfortunately, it didn't happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. So now let's look at the rest of the top six there, Prof. Of course, Jessie Duarte, the only female representative within that, the executive members of the party. We've heard views from the ANC Women's League president there, Batabile Dlamini, who literally, we hear that she was stuck in a cubicle in Nazareth crying about the outcome of the results because she just couldn't believe that NTZ didn't make through. And also she's worried about the representation of females. So what do you think this speaks to about the organization, well, the ruling party?
I think it says a lot about the Women's League.
They're not that effective.
The leadership of the Women's League, yes. Because I think they concentrated their resources on only one person.
That's true.
Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. And basically ignored other women who were running for various positions. And I think the Women's League needs to set up quite a clear agenda and strategy of how to advance the role, the interests, the positions of women within the African National Congress. But I don't see the Women's League doing that under the leadership of Batabile Dlamini. She is completely ineffective. And unfortunately, she may have had the numbers and was voted to that position, but I don't think she actually deserves to be the leader of the Women's League.
But then, Prof, how would they have done that to try and garner more support or concentrate on all the other female contenders there? Because we knew that everybody was contesting. It was personal contestation, and people were not willing to compromise from those positions. So how were they supposed to now sit down and tell them, listen, we've got a bigger plan. This is focus on the bigger plan, and that is to get at least 3 women in the top 6. What should they have done differently then in terms of campaigning?
That's what I'm actually saying, that they should have developed first a campaign strategy.
As a Women's League, separately. Before they even pronounced on those preferred candidates or those candidates pronounced
Unfortunately,
themselves.
their approach was factionalist, if not also ethno-nationalist.
So they only have themselves to blame,
Absolutely,
Prof?
they have themselves to blame. But I hope the ANC leadership will find ways and means to promote and advance women within the organization.
All right. I hear your concerns about Ace Magashule being at the helm as the SG. Who are some of your other concerns within the top six? Because as we know, none of those people in the top six were actually Cyril Ramaphosa's favorite people, if you can put it that way.
Yes, but I think Gwede was actually Cyril's favorite.
Maybe he's the only one there,
And
Prof.
I also think Paul Mashatile was also Cyril's favorite.
Okay.
Yes, I'm worried about Mr. David Mabuza as the deputy president of the ANC. I'm worried, number one, about his integrity, which already you can hear EFF messages questioning that. In fact, I think Mr. Mabuza and Mr. Magashule are actually going to provide strategic loopholes for the opposition to pin holes on the high moral ground Cyril is going to try to pull the ANC towards.
But isn't it his role as the leader of the movement to try and then move them away from the ways that they've been currently operating to make them see the bigger picture, Prof? I mean, it's his job, isn't it? Isn't he supposed to unify the ANC at this stage?
Alicia, let's hope they do.
He's got a huge mandate.
Let's hope they do. But remember, some of the people in the NEC, let's say David Mabuza, and the Secretary General now, Ace Magashule. Yes, they are in these situations where their integrity is sort of compromised out of the desire to advance personal and self-interests. You see, once you start attacking a person at that level, you see, you'll find that the person no longer prioritizes the organization and the delegates who voted him to power, but seeks to protect himself. So I think this is going to be an interesting challenge for Cyril, especially the first 6 months of his leadership of the ANC, how to get the top 8 as a machine to gel and to function in a united direction.
Prof, you know, while we're still on Ace Magashule, we do know that there's now been allegations about who actually voted for that position of Secretary General. Apparently 68 members that were, the Electoral Commission said were there, were actually, were not present, were actually present. So what do you know about the story? Do you have any further details?
I've heard about the story. I don't have further details.
What do you think could have gone wrong there?
I just hope the new top 8, and there's a committee they set up to actually look into this matter. And I hope they can look at it as objectively as possible. And I hope when they present their report now to the plenary, it will be accepted.
But Supra is saying no, then they shouldn't be making these allegations at this stage because it's going to bring down the whole conference. I mean, Prof?
Yeah, but you know Supra's agenda. It's known by everybody.
What is his agenda, Prof?
Really, I mean, in the run-up to the elections, we actually saw clearly where he stands and what he seeks to advance. He's a Mr. Zuma loyalist. Yeah, so I'm not surprised by his statement.
Look, let's talk about, of course, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa, who's been preaching against corruption, who's been literally been mandated by the whole country, by opposition parties to deal first and foremost with the issue of corruption. And then you look at the so-called leaders that you're concerned about that are within his stride. How does he then break away from that and make us think differently about his top 6 members?
First of all, I think amongst the strength which I know Cyril to have, he's quite a persuasive gentleman. He's a kind of leader who can influence the Cyril. But at the same time, thirdly, I know him to be quite a firm person, especially when he believes that this is the right direction. And I think that's the kind of leader the ANC needs now, and that is the kind of leader South Africa is going to need after the 29 elections, if the ANC wins, you see. But Alicia, is going to be a bit of a job for him, because he's not only going to be dealing with controversial members of the top 6, but he'll also be dealing with, you know, the kind of network of spookies behind them. Some linked to the previous president, Mr. Zuma. Yeah, that's why I was saying the first 6 months is actually going to be quite strenuous for him. But I think he will actually get things right.
what should be at the top of his mandate, though, Prof? Because we do understand that, as we've said, state capture, everybody wants that inquiry to go through, but a lot of people, we've been hearing, this is just a rumor, we're hearing that they're trying to move so that, of course, the ANC actually removes the president before the end of the year.
Alicia, that's a very difficult one.
Yeah.
But in my view and in my analysis, I would actually advise them to be careful about how they remove Mr. Zuma. They'll need to be very careful. And they'll need to be very careful.
Do you see that happening, Prof? Can they make a move like that? How would it pan out? Like the newly elected leadership, can they make a move for the president, this current sitting president, to be then removed from office? Can they do that? How?
That's why I say if they think about that, if ever they think about that, they'll need to be very careful. Because number one, he still enjoys quite a degree of support within the ANC itself. And secondly, there are many people who are going to be sitting in the NEC who are not very clean and are implicated in various ways in whatever Mr. Zuma was doing. So in other words, he must be careful to force his recall and ultimately divide the ANC in such a way that it goes to the 2019 elections completely divided.
Yeah. All right. And Prof, a very quick one before I let you go. We do know that, of course, KZN has always had an official in the top 6. That branch has been broken. That record has been broken. And, of course, we saw how Senzo Mchunu came so close to getting that SG post. What do you think now, as we talk about the current votes for the NEC? Do you think we are likely to see a lot of the KZN delegates within that NEC?
I don't think we're going to see a lot of them, you see, because they are going to be tempered by other provinces. Remember, the run-up to the elections has actually constructed some kind of animosity.
Yeah.
And you can't expect this animosity to suddenly disappear. I think KZN has really worked itself into a predicament, which is going to take a bit of time to get out of. Yeah.
Prof, well, we're going to be sitting and watching eagerly and see what happens with those results. That is political analyst Professor Kondlo.